early hearing. The judge made the rulings. So a lot of the Arizona evidence that Trina Kay and the Maricopa County prosecutors have probably won't have been heard before, at least in court.
Interesting. And I mean, the 404B, you mentioned that during Lori Vallow's Idaho trial, Jim Archibald repeatedly objected to that because they obviously didn't want that brought in.
Yeah, there had been a motion filed in Lori Vallow's Idaho case and in Chad Daybell's case to admit the 404B. And that was one of those many hearings that were held outside the presence of the public and the jury, to people's frustration, I think. But the 404B hearings typically happen outside the presence of other people because if the court says it doesn't come in, then he hasn't now publicized it. So there was a hearing ahead of time. It was probably a good day, maybe three-quarters of a day, going over the evidence that we would be allowed in from Arizona into the Daybell case and into the Vallow case. So some of the evidence we wanted in wasn't allowed in, not a lot, but in this case, you're going to hear some of the evidence we wanted in that the court said was just not necessary in Idaho.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the type of hearing I would have loved to be in.
Mhm. Yeah,
For all
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay, I want to talk about the prosecution's job in this particular case because Lori Vallow Daybell is representing herself.
yeah.
How does that change the game for a prosecutor?
Uh, Pro se cases are a prosecutor's worst nightmare. And I think that's counterintuitive sometimes to the public, but as a
You think it'd be a
prosecutor,
walk in the park because they don't know what
yeah,
they're doing.
yeah, you think it is, but in reality, the appellate courts view it much more strictly. You want to make sure the jury doesn't think you're beating up on somebody. There's a natural sympathy, at least initially. I think Lori will wear that out pretty quickly with this jury, but there is a natural sympathy that goes on in a courtroom in front of a judge where the person's pro se. So the prosecutor has to walk that fine line between being a zealous and tough advocate and always appearing fair and always making sure that they are showing how balanced and even-handed. It's a little different handling objections when you've got opposing counsel. When you've got a pro se person who doesn't know how to do it, you have to be real careful on how you handle it. And trials always take longer. So in this case, you got an extremely experienced, highly competent prosecutor, a very experienced judge. And I think you're going to see a lot of patience and a lot of deference being shown Lori Vallow. And that's to protect the record because the goal is to convict her and convict her once.
Fascinating. So you're saying that when the prosecutor has to decide whether to object or not on certain things that Lori Daybell might question or oppose. I mean, how do you weigh that when in the back of your mind you clearly know she's going against the rules? Is it pick your battles, just kind of let it go, a mix of both?
Yeah, when a pro se defendant objects, I always just sit back and say, okay, is this really hurting me? Which is hard to suppress because most prosecutors are rule followers. And when it violates the rules, it bothers you. It's kind of like a situation where you just know it's wrong, but you have to let more go than you would normally let go. And you only do it if you think it's hurting you or if it's so egregious it could cause a reversal.
Have you ever seen a pro se defendant win?
I have not. I have not. What I have seen is courts of appeals scrutinize the trial judges very closely.
Hmm.
This judge is a very experienced judge. The Maricopa team knows what they're doing. I think it may be frustrating to observers and listeners because it's going to feel like Lori's getting away with stuff. But it's really just people dotting their I's, crossing their T's, and making sure that there's no reason to send this back.
So for those of us watching, those viewers over the next few weeks that are like, why doesn't the judge get her in line? Why does he allow that? You're saying he really wants to protect himself and be careful as well.
Yeah, the court will work hard to protect the record, protect any outcome on the case, And that means they're going to show Lori a lot of patience.
Lori Vallow listed me on her witness list, and a lot of people have asked me the question, so can any defendant list anyone on their witness list just to simply keep them from attending their trials?
And they can, and defense attorneys do that as well. Oftentimes, that's a tactic used to try to keep certain people out of the courtroom. In some states, they'll even put victims or their families on the list to try to make sure that they aren't in the courtroom. What recourse the witness or the other side has is to file a motion with the court and ask for either a public hearing or an in-camera conversation. Like Lori can go back into chambers with the judge and say, this specific thing I intend to try to elicit. And if they can satisfy the judge, then the witness is out of luck. If they can't satisfy the judge, then the person is allowed in the courtroom.
When you say in camera, I want to be sure our audience understands because we've heard that term and people assume it means with a camera in the courtroom, but it doesn't really have anything to do with a camera.
No, it's that old English or Latin term, it meaning focused in private with the judge. So the person or their attorney will go into chambers, the judge will question them, or they'll make a statement, sometimes called an offer of proof. It's on the record, but the other side isn't in the room. And this way they don't have to reveal a trial strategy, but they do have to justify their actions to the court. So it wouldn't be atypical for a judge to require the person to come in.
Okay, so the people on the witness list, really it's up to the defendant to say this is why I may need them if the people on the witness list want to attend the trial or watch the trial. But I would imagine most of them just say, I'm not going to bother.
A lot of them say, or they don't have the means to fight it. Some witnesses just can't. Others are like, well, I didn't want to be there anyway. So sometimes they just throw in the towel and move and try to make sure that they can uh, be available to testify and then come in later.
Have you ever seen a defendant list a journalist on their list?
Yes, actually, there was a journalist in Missouri who interviewed a defendant before a trial. He gave statements to the journalist, and then the journalist, of course, published some of that stuff and then withheld some of the statements, saying he would publish it after the trial by agreement with the defense. Well, the court allowed the prosecutor to subpoena the journalist, and the journalist had to turn over their notes, and the Supreme Court upheld it. So I have seen that happen, and it's usually when the belief is that a journalist has some sort of inside scoop.
Interesting. So if you were on this prosecution team, and I know that's a big if to say because you don't know all the ins and outs and everything, but would there be a theme that you would come up with or some sort of message that you would constantly try to get in the minds of the jurors?
Yes, I would really focus the case on Charles and who was lost, that Lori's desire for money and glamour, such as it was through her new boyfriend, Chad, the author, cost Charles Vallow his life. And so the case rightfully will be focused on evidence in Arizona. In this case, I'd keep it narrow and keep it focused on Charles.
How much stuff from Idaho do you think will be brought in about the deaths of JJ and Tylee? The judge has already said he's going to put their names on the jury questionnaire. But will we hear a lot about the children's death and the horrible manner in which they were found, or is a lot of that going to be limited?
I think looking at the witness list that the prosecution put forward, you don't see a lot of you don't see the people from Idaho. You don't see the people on the list that would be the way to introduce that evidence. So I think we're going to have a very limited trial. There will clearly be some mention of it. There will clearly be some conversation about the scope of the conspiracy. But it is possible the judge will limit the vast majority of it because Charles' death occurred first, and the argument may be the evidence of the children is and Tammy is too prejudicial and not as probative as necessary. I suspect we'll see a very narrow trial given this witness list that was filed by the state.
What did you think of Lori's interview on Dateline?
Oh, Lori is that interview on Dateline was what I was secretly hoping would happen if she testified in her own defense in front of in Idaho.
Idaho.
Yeah, we had talked about having Rob Wood do the cross because that's at least looking at all the videos, paying attention to the witness statements, seeing how she interacted with law enforcement consistently. That is what she did. She tried to flirt or charm or maneuver her way around the situation, and we were secretly hoping that's what would have happened in her trial in Boise.
And that's why you thought Rob can do it to see if she kind of goes back and forth with him versus a woman.
Yeah, yeah, and there was also Rob just being of the same faith. There was some evidence based on her jail calls that she saw a special connection with Rob, which kind of you saw come out in some of the early motions filed by Mark Means. So Lori's connection and interaction with men is starkly different than her interaction with women. So that Dateline interview was what we were secretly hoping would try to happen in Boise had she testified.
And she specifically requested Keith Morrison. She
Yeah.
wanted on the number one crime program, and she wanted him. Was any of her behavior surprising to you at all?
No, no. I really wasn't. What was surprising was how patient Keith Morrison was, because that would be extremely hard, knowing he followed it the entire time, like you, uh, even before the children were even known to be dead. I can't imagine having to show that level of patience, but he did, and that behavior is what we really thought we would see out of Lori
Hmm.
had she testified.
And do you think we'll see that behavior all throughout the next month and a half, if that's how long the trial goes?
Yeah, we do because there were times during jury selection we could tell there were certain men she really wanted on that jury. And so it was just the way she behaved. I think you will see some of that. What will be interesting, and hopefully you'll be able to be in there and watch, and so you can tell us. She will to see if she'll try to look at the guys and make eye contact and make connection. I don't think she'll be obviously flirty right away, but I will be fascinated to hear from you whether she follows through with that sort of pattern of behavior.
Yeah, I'll have to, pay close attention because we'll obviously be hearing from her, I would imagine, versus, in jury selection in Idaho, it was mainly her attorneys we heard from. In fact, one of the jurors I spoke with after the fact who made it on the jury said she walked in the courtroom and thought Lori was one of the attorneys. She was dressed nice. She was there consulting back and forth with Jim and John. And then she realized on the first day of the trial, no, that's the defendant herself.
Wow.
So
Wow. Yeah.
now that you've been it's been 2 years, believe it or not, since that April 2023 trial with Lori. Has anything in your mind changed or stuck out to you as far as, what you experienced that whole time?
Oh, for me personally or
Yeah.
for
Yeah, you
cases?
personally, or the case.
Um, I've tried a lot of cases. Handled a lot of homicides. This one has stuck with me in a way, and putting aside the media, because I haven't really been part of all of that. I've done a couple interviews with you and I answered questions for a couple people, but I haven't really lived with it probably the way Rob and Lindsay and Spencer and Tanya have locally. But for me, it's there will be times I will think about the case, or I received one of the wristbands, the remembrance bands from Kay and Larry, and I'll see that it's in my car, and I'll see that, and I think of them, and it sticks with me in a way that other cases haven't. The depravity of what a mom can do to her kids just really resonates. I'm not sure when that will go away. My daughter was about the same age as Tylee, so I can remember during going over and doing Dr. Christensen's testimony, and in the middle of it, I for whatever reason, I thought of my daughter. So that when you're a mom, when your kids are about the same age, that stuff just sticks with you.
Right. Do you have anything you wish you would have presented at the trial, or anything you wish you could have gotten in?
I would have liked to have gotten in more about Charles. Um, I would have loved to have gotten in, but the judge absolutely made the right call. Would have loved to have gotten in some of her footage where she wasn't, where she was manipulating the police during the request for a psych eval. But, in the end, it was Judge Boyce did a phenomenal job. It's one less issue that could, although she's waived appeals, that could have been raised on appeal. So the judge made the right call, but I would have loved to see that. I'll be hoping to see that in this trial. I think there's every reason for it to come in, and I would be very interested to see the jury's reaction to it.
I know a lot of us in the public say, "Oh, we wish we would have heard more of those jailhouse calls between her and Chad,"
Yeah,
or things like that, which I don't know how many of those. It appears the relevant ones were used, but and you
yeah,
probably could have played those all day, every day, but to no point.
right. Right. Well, and you had to be careful in both trials because this was really a team effort by Chad and Lori. They really, to me, they mutually manipulated each other and mutually manipulated others. So playing too many of those phone calls, while interesting, you risk the idea that they would see some sort of power dynamic by Chad against Lori or Lori against Chad. Candidly, I was surprised that the defense didn't use some of them.
Oh,
So I was surprised that the defense didn't use more of some of those calls between Chad and Lori to make it look like Lori just, was manipulated by Chad.
all right. My thanks to Rachel Smith. If you missed any of that interview, apparently it cut out again. The computer I use, I have a couple of computers here, decided to do an update tonight, and so it's shutting down programs. I apologize. The Wi-Fi, I believe, is fine, but we're going to look into this. I apologize if you missed any of Rachel's interview. I will post the whole thing. Fascinating interview, and I'm going to pay attention to how Lori Vallow is responding during jury selection tomorrow when men get called up. This is the reason why we are here. Charles Vallow, shot and killed in July of 2019, father of JJ, whom he loved so much. He also took care of Colby and Tylee. He was an uncle. He was a businessman. He did a lot for so many. And so we remember Charles tonight, along with the other victims who have perished in these cases. And we think about them. I do want to pause here and give a thanks to our sponsor, Browning Law, Allen Browning Law Firm in Idaho Falls. They are sponsoring Courtroom Insider. They make it possible so we can come to you every night. I want to ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can. There we go. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, X. I was live tweeting today. I'll be doing that again tomorrow. There won't be any cameras tomorrow. So if you go to eastidahonews.com, follow us throughout the day, or at X starting around 10:30 Arizona time. I'm also on Insta and YouTube, of course, at East Idaho News. I want to give a big thanks to many of you who sent in donations today to our newsroom. We really appreciate that, and I can't thank you enough. I was going to wear this shirt tonight, guilty of following eastidahonews.com. I might wear it tomorrow night. Just want it to be a little bit more appropriate today. Many of you ordered shirts, either that shirt or the Ain't Nobody Got Crime for That, or our I Come for the News, Stay for the Comments shirt. Big thanks to those of you that did that. And I promised my daughter, she gave me a bunch of Easter eggs to open one a day from now until Easter. And I promised her I would open this one on camera tonight. And she said I could read the note to you. Hi, Daddy, I'm so sad you'll miss your birthday here. Also, if you want, you can show this on Courtroom Insider. I love you. Love your favorite daughter, Emmy Swimmy. Thank you, Emmy. So nice hearing from you. And kudos to my wife who is holding down the fort at home. It was the first day back to school today after spring break. And you know how that is. Many of you went through it today, just the madness of it all. And I miss taking my kids to school. But I think I got all those in. Peggy, let's get to your questions. So many of you have questions. First of all, the shout outs. Michael Jepson, my good buddy in Fruitland, Idaho. He's a physical therapist. He just moved there. Wish he was here to work on my shoulder. But if you need help, go see Michael Jepson. Wayne Cleverly, Tammy Camphouse, thank you for watching. Pat Kane, Tanya Ann, Geraldine O'Gorman, Rose Kruger, Jana Grace, and Laura Welsh. Thank you for watching. We have people watching from all over. If you haven't put in your city or state, please do. Burley, Idaho, Macedonia. Where's Macedonia? Wow, that's amazing. Aruba, Meridian, Connecticut. Almost took a job in Connecticut once. Ireland, Holland, Denmark, Pingree, Idaho, back home. Round Rock, Idaho, Rexburg, of course, Spain, the UK, Australia, England, and Minnesota. A lot of good places. Now to your questions. I'm worried that if you're using a third-party company to order shirts, we will not be able to get them signed by Nate and the team. Help. That is true. We are using a third party just to make it easier. However, we are going to get shirts that we will put on our website that you can order directly through East Idaho News, and they will be shipped from us after the trial's over, and then we can sign them. So if you want to wait to get it, you can. If you want to order one today through our third-party store, you can get it early enough, and then if we meet one day, I'll sign it for you. Laura says, I heard Charles's home sold. Where did his kids go? His sons are grown and have gone to college. Of course, Colby is out on his own. I believe that Charles was leasing that house, but somebody definitely new lives in the home. I went by the other day, and yeah, somebody lives there. Love you guys and all you do. Is there any way you can start Courtroom Insider a bit early, maybe at 7? The current time is 8. 11 o'clock on the East Coast is tough for so many. Well, it is 7, 8, 9. It should be 10 o'clock on the East Coast. So it's 7 o'clock Pacific, Arizona, 8, 9, 10. I realize it's late. Maybe we can bump it back an hour starting next week. The issue is that court's going to get out around 4:30, and then I've got to have time to get back here, and it takes about an hour or 2 hours to prepare. So the time was going to be tight. But thank you. Also know if you can't watch live, you can watch it the next day. It's always available on demand. Deborah, why don't they get the audio of Alex saying he could kill someone and make it look like an accident? Maybe they have it. I'm trying to remember where that audio is from, Deborah, but I would imagine if it's relevant, they can get it in. Jody asks if Zulema will be here. No, she's not on the witness list, and I will be stunned if she comes to watch. Stunned, but I hope she does. Zulema, if you're watching, I'd love to talk to you. Lori says, Lori, what do you think will happen to the cops who treated Lori and Alex with such kid gloves? I don't know. Some of them will testify, and some of them will, talk about what happened that day. There's been some of the officers who have retired. Some of the officers have probably left the department, but some of these officers we have heard from before. So we will see. We will see what questions Lori has for them. Have there been any procedural changes in the police department since Charles's death? Cindy just asked. Yes, there was a bunch of movement. I don't know all the specifics, but there was a bunch of movement in the beginning of the trial. And remember, this was almost 6 years ago. So a lot of the older guys that were nearing retirement have retired, have left the force. So they could, be out doing, they could be retired. Were any family members in court today? Nope, there weren't, Tara. And Tara, normally we'll start probably seeing family members next week when the trial actually starts. Jury selection, it's not very exciting. I mean, it's kind of, I don't want to say ho-hum, but kind of standard. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about the courtroom that this is in and the fact that Jodi Arias was tried on the same floor across the hall. Is Lori up for the death penalty? She is not. In Arizona, this is a conspiracy case. It's not first-degree murder, so she does not qualify for death. Heather says, if the trial is going to be recorded and start 30 minutes later after it originally starts, will we be seeing the beginning or will we miss the first 30 minutes? Good question. I'm a little confused. The trial will start at 10:30. We will start recording video immediately when it starts. At 11, this is all Arizona time, we will push play and you will watch from the beginning. You will see the whole thing unless a juror is accidentally shown or something is shown that shouldn't be, then we'll have to cut that out. But yes, you will see the whole thing. So we will get out of court 30 minutes before you finish watching it, if that makes sense. So yeah, you won't miss anything. If you stay tuned, you'll just be seeing it late. Thank you for conveniently adding the frequently asked question for the trial. Deborah says, for someone such as I who has the knowledge of the case, I become annoyed to sit through continued backstory on the case. I understand why Nate does it, but having the link is really appreciated. Thank you, Deborah. If you are looking for that, actually, let me show you here for those of you watching. Like if you're new here or don't know what we're talking about, this is if you go to eastidahonews.com, right here on the upper right-hand corner, Lori Vallow Daybell on trial, complete coverage. Click that. And here we have right at the top, a digest, which is a daily newsletter. Somebody's calling me. We have a Courtroom Insider button, which is all the videos from our history of Courtroom Insider. Frequently asked questions right here. Here's a timeline. Here's a who's who, and here's videos. And then here's all of our stories we've ever done on the case. So you can find that on eastidahonews.com or our free app. Okay. While in Arizona, can you please look up the system as far as makeup and hair products go for Lori? Okay. It seems ridiculous she can wear all that as a prisoner, but is it also because she's her own lawyer? Well, we know the clothing, the judge allowed that. From what I understand, you can get some basic makeup. And I don't know about hair from commissary. You can get makeup, though. Lori was a hairdresser, and you can take the garments that they give you, like the shirts or whatever, wet them, and twist them into, like, I don't want to call them tubes or whatever, and put them in your hair. As you can tell, I'm so experienced with my hair. That's how I understand. But I'll try to find some more information because that's interesting. I'm surprised Lori isn't being charged. This is Pat. After listening to your show last night, I'm surprised she isn't being charged with insurance fraud since it seems she had Charles's account changed to password protected. Since she was not the owner of the policy, I would think it was a crime. Wondering what your thoughts are. Well, I don't know if we ever learned that she officially did change the password on that account. Ultimately, she didn't get any money. So I think if she had gotten the money, it would have been different, but she didn't get any money. And she was charged in Idaho for, well, Chad was charged with insurance fraud. She was charged with grand theft for taking the money of her children and Tammy. When a juror is dismissed in Lori's trial, do they leave immediately, or does the judge ask them to stay till they get through the group? Nope, they leave immediately. At least in Idaho, you're dismissed, you go. They get you out of there. You don't have to stay. Annabelle remembers how we find live coverage from the courtroom because I was lost today and couldn't find you. It's a little complicated, Annabelle, at least it has been so far. Starting next week, when Court TV is here, they're the pool camera, meaning all the media we plug into their gear. So you should be able to find us every day starting at 11:30 Mountain Time on the East Idaho News YouTube channel. Just go there, subscribe, hit the little bell. You'll get a notice whenever we go live. We were late today because Fox was the shooter, the camera people, and we couldn't get their feed. Behind the scenes stuff. Not anything bad on them. I'm just saying we had to wait to get the feed till it was over. Why didn't Lori call Chad as a witness? Could she have? I think she could have. That would have been fascinating. I don't know if the judge would have allowed it, but imagine her cross-examining him. Nate, maybe you can't answer this, but do you get the feeling Lori's calling you as a witness as an act of vengeance since you pushed her hard in Hawaii to get the answer to where her kids were? I really don't think so. And I say that because I've talked with Lori a decent amount of times over the past 2 years, and she's been very friendly, very polite, sharing recipes. I mean, really, I don't think she was upset with me. Maybe she is now, but I don't know. Kelly says, did you say you've been visiting with Lori in prison? No, she wanted me to visit her in prison, and I made the request. She wanted a face-to-face visit with me, and I tried in Idaho. Here, they don't allow face-to-face visits, but we have communicated. I'm super confused about Charles's phone. What did she take? When did she get to take it on all those errands? After he was shot, she grabbed his phone and took off. Allegedly. She had the phone with her. She didn't leave it at the house. So he was shot and she grabbed the phone and left, most likely. Or she took the phone because they were arguing, left the house, and then Alex shot her. But regardless, she took his phone. Can the judge now determine that Lori is not equipped to be her own attorney? No, he can't. What is, I wanted to keep yelling, keep Nate's name out of your mouth.
How do you feel? How did I feel? I'll tell you, it was surreal. It was so weird to be sitting there and hear her say stuff that I know wasn't true and just listen. And then, I wanted to kind of stand up and say, I probably could have. I asked my attorney, I said, you can do the talking. Do you want me to come up? He said, I'll take care of it unless you want to. And I wondered if the judge would call me up to say, Mr. Eaton, do you have knowledge of such and such? But he didn't. But it was a little odd, I will say. I mean, it was weird to be there. Corey says, do the donations to East Idaho News go to Nate's candy addiction? No,